Would you say your dietetics curriculum prepared you adequately for navigating the work world? Join me in this video as I go over what I consider the key skill not taught in school that I've used over and over again to help me advance in my career as a dietitian. Hey folks, I'm Amy Hager, a registered dietitian in private practice, and I've been a dietitian since the early 2000s and have had what I would consider a fairly successful career. The first job I landed as a dietitian was exactly what I wanted to do, and every job that I took after that was a huge step up professionally and financially. So I've realized, aside from the crazy amount of information that we are taught in school as dietitians, there are critical skills that are not touched on at all. So my plan is to do a video series on these skills. So if you like the sound of that idea, give this video a thumbs up. And if you have any suggestions on skills that aren't taught in school, drop a comment below. So upon looking back at my career, I realized I was drawing on a particular skill to help me navigate career decisions, and that skill was intuition. There are some telltale signs to recognize that your intuition is urging you towards change or something better. So let's dive into exactly what I mean here. So first, do you ever notice that you're in a job for a while and that the excitement, the novelty, and the thrill starts to fade? Now, this is totally normal. You might consider this the honeymoon phase of your career or of that job position. And you just kind of chug along in your role with your usual pride and conviction, doing your work every day. But there often comes a point where your job starts to not sit right with you. You can't put your finger on it exactly, but the more you focus on this feeling, the more things start to come to your attention that also make you like your job less and less. So you start to think about what's next. And this slight, yet sometimes hard to notice shift in feeling is what I'm talking about here. So if you can catch on it early, you can save yourself a lot of grief. Then what do? You're starting not to enjoy your job. You have a couple of choices here. One would be to rationalize this feeling, to normalize it by saying, well, lots of people don't love their jobs, work is work, something similar to that. So basically you're ignoring your feelings and just carrying along with the status quo. Eventually, you do this long enough and you normalize feeling unhappy about your work. And you're so used to it that it doesn't even seem weird anymore, and that you could probably stay in that same position, that same situation for years. But another option is, what is the alternative to that? So I'm not suggesting quitting your job outright, although some people certainly do that. But if you were to lean into that feeling of dissatisfaction, what could you learn? You might discover that you are ready for more of a challenge, or more compensation, or more ease in your daily commute, for example. So I'll talk about my experience. I usually start this process by focusing on one aspect that I'm not enjoying, such as a long commute. I realize that I have choices. I could either improve the commute by perhaps using the time to listen to enjoyable audiobooks or podcasts, or get a really comfortable seat cushion, or I could remove the commute altogether by getting a new job. One thing to figure out is it there just one aspect of your work? Or are there multiple aspects that are creating and contributing to the dissatisfaction? How many aspects are changeable? But here's an insider's secret. So it's not just the logistics or the technicalities that we're analyzing here about how to improve your work experience. This really has to do with tapping into more of how you feel. And intuition is a subtle feeling, and it can easily be drowned out with the noise of daily living and all the distraction that we have to keep us separated from it. So did you hear that? We get separated from our intuition through busyness and distraction. Well, how else does intuition appear aside from how you feel? Is it just that we have to, focus in on our feelings here? Some people refer to intuition as your inner voice or listening to your heart, but it seems to be noticeable, and it grabs our attention the most when we really feel out of sorts with our daily flow. On the positive side, it can also come to us as an urge or an impulse to try something new or different. So it's not necessarily always a negative feeling. Intuition can be a positive feeling. It I had this experience when I had the urge to write a book about my process of transitioning into private practice. The feeling was so strong and compelling. I just started to outline my journey even before I had the motivation to turn it into a book. And I feel like there was so much to share and document about the process. I really couldn't wait to write it all down. And there was just really an undeniable thrill inside of me that I couldn't deny. So that's a real strong intuition that's kind of moving you towards action. And I would say there's probably one more way that my intuition guides me towards career advancement, aside from feeling bad about my current status or feeling positively motivated to take action. And that is an undeniable curiosity that starts to take over. I start to wonder about what's next. And I start to ask myself a bunch of questions like, what would I prefer over this? Or what could the next chapter look like? Or what is the best case scenario about where I want to head? So curiosity has often caused me to research new roles such as health coaching and even self-employment. But ultimately, indulging in my curiosity comes from an impulse to follow how I feel rather than to dig into my current reality, accept what is, and just muscle through one more day in a job that I'm no longer thrilled about. So intuition is certainly an underused skill set, particularly for those of us in healthcare, trained to follow analytical advice. But if we can remove some of the distractions by doing a little bit more focus work, from time to time, having some quiet time, we can allow our intuition to guide us, to tell us that it's time to close one chapter and begin a new one. I'm curious now, do you rely on your intuition to guide you in your career? How has it played out for you? And I'd love to hear how you enjoyed this topic because I feel like I could go on into more depth into these soft skill sets. And I definitely am going to make some continuing videos along the same lines. And here is to strengthening and trusting your intuition in your next career decision. In the meantime, though, definitely subscribe if you want to see more content on having an inspired and satisfying RD career. If this feels like a topic you want to explore more, definitely set up a discovery call with me. I'm doing RD mentoring at the moment. If you want to be mentored on topics like trusting your intuition or taking the next step in your career. All right, guys, have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to catch the latest video here. And don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see more videos on private practice and being self-employed as a dietitian.